Yeah, sure.
All right, so welcome to the Business of Marriage. I'm Serena Goodman, and this is my co-host, my featured co-host today. This is Ernie Davidson. So, Ernie, now
Hey,
I
how
know
you
that
doing?
I always mess up your whole DJ thing. So it's DJ.
Burning Ernie D.
There we go, DJ Burning Ernie D. I'm gonna make sure I did not massacre it tonight. So listen, I'm so excited to have you back again.
Glad
It
to
was
be
so
back.
nice we had to do it twice.
All right, glad
Yeah.
to be back.
So today we're going to talk about finances, which is one of my favorite topics. Two major reasons that a lot of relationships do not work out is what? Infidelity and finance. So we're going to
Yes.
talk about finance today. That's a
It's
big topic.
A big topic. Yeah,
That's a big one.
absolutely. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
bypass it, don't think about how important it is.
Exactly. But I want them to take notes tonight. Make sure you take notes because we got a lot of great information. So
Absolutely.
let's take it to when should a couple start having that conversation about finances? When do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a specific answer for when, but I think during the dating stage, you ought to pay attention to how your partner maneuvers or how they move when it comes down to money. Something as simple as who's picking up the check on a date. Not to say it has to go one way or another, but you start to get a feel of what that person's like, whether or not there's generosity, whether or not there's chivalry from the man's perspective. Okay, whether or not you come to agreement to go Dutch.
Yeah.
That's important too, that
Yeah.
you have that understanding that we're compromising, especially if you know where you both stand in terms of if you have a job,
Right.
or what kind of income you're
Right.
bringing in, because again, if
Yeah.
you're teenagers dating, late teens, early 20s and what have you, you might still be unstable,
Yeah.
trying to get yourself together.
I agree with that. But if the man asks you out on a date, he should have some finances to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
He should not be. I mean, that could be a conversation, but see, back in my day, that was not a conversation. Like, if you ask me out on a date, I'm expecting you to take care of the bill. Now, I might offer to pay the tip,
The tip,
right?
okay.
Because, ladies do that.
Right.
I would offer to pay the tip, but I wouldn't expect to pay the bill. Now, if we've been going out, like, regularly, I might say, hey, listen, you know what? I want to check this place out. Is my treat. I don't think anything's wrong with that.
That's good, and I think a man can appreciate that. Just from my own perspective, because I like to share my own personal
Well, we
experience.
like your personal experiences. They're always
Look,
so interesting.
Because going on 30 years, it's went through a lot, and
Yeah,
there's been an up and down, and we've had our financial struggles. But at the
Sure.
beginning, right, there was a situation where we've been on a couple of dates, maybe just actually approaching our second or third date.
Okay.
And I took her to see a play. This
Oh.
was our second or third date, right? But she agreed to pay for dinner.
Okay.
And one of our matter of fact, the play that we went to see was Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Okay.
Okay, so you know how long ago that was.
Wow.
And one of our favorite places to eat was Tad's Steakhouse.
Oh, okay.
They have the price fixed, you
Right.
get a decent
That was
steak.
that was
like
the price,
$10,
right? Yeah.
you know?
Okay.
And so we had went there on a previous date, so she knew what we had ordered, and she agreed. We agreed that we were gonna go there, and
Okay,
she's
okay.
gonna
She was gonna pick up the tab.
pick up the tab after we came from the play, and of course, she later on she'd tell me that she kept her fingers crossed that we would order the same thing
Oh.
that we had the previous time, because that's the exact amount of money that she had
Oh wow.
to cover it. She said if I had ordered something different that brought the price up, she would have probably
been a whole
just,
nother ball game.
or she would have played it off like she wasn't hungry and got just a
Oh,
salad
my
or something
God,
like that.
No.
And so that was funny, but again, that illustrates where we stand in terms of
Yeah,
where our
yeah.
financial position
Yeah.
is. And I think it was great that she, did that, but that's one of the things that I fell in love with her about, that she was willing to say, I'm not going to depend on the guy to pay all the,
Right.
you know,
She'll
pay,
be
pay
a
everything.
contributor.
Exactly.
That's important.
And that's
Yeah,
one of the,
that's important.
when we talk about the business of marriage,
Yeah.
and it's about a give and take, and it's about, I don't think there's a man or a woman, even though, I come from a perspective where I do believe the man should lead in the relationship. I believe in chivalry and so forth, opening the doors and things like that. And the man should step up.
Right.
But if a woman participates, I think it makes the relationship even stronger.
Okay, well, you got to define lead. So
Well,
when you say the man
the man
should
should-
lead, what do you mean?
And be the head, to take on the responsibility of decision making with compromise and with of course contribution from the
Okay.
wife.
So you
But
mean head? Did you mean lead like financially, or you meant lead the family? Did you
lead
mean
the family,
Okay, okay.
be the head of the household, that type of thing.
Mhm,
Even though there's a place for a woman to take lead also in certain
Right.
instances, but for overall, I do believe the man should
Well, your
step
formula
up and
works.
to take that
The
lead.
formula works.
It works.
But I mean, it takes a lot to get to that. So
It does.
for people who are just starting out, because look, talking about finances is different depending on where you are in life.
Right.
So we talk about the people who are young adults who get into relationships, right? Sometimes I think that's the most exciting part of this whole financial build-up thing, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't have much, you don't have much, and then at that particular time you can say, okay, listen, this is the plan that I like. Let's save our money. Let's travel first. Let's have
Right.
kids at this
Mhm.
point. You continue with your degree, or that's what
Right.
my husband did. He
Absolutely.
sent me to school. He sent me to college, right? Now later on,
Awesome.
I may have exceeded him, but at that particular point, he
So
was the
that was
major
it.
breadwinner, right? And so he said, okay, you go to college, you finish school,
Mhm.
and that's how we started the whole process off,
Wow.
right? That's the ideal way. It doesn't always work like that, because then sometimes children come into the way, and then you start making different decisions, and if you don't have those financial conversations, and then you find yourself married,
Mhm.
then you have a big problem. You find out the person is hiding shoes under the bed, and they
Yes.
buying pocketbooks, but the
Uh-huh.
rent's not
Right,
paid, right?
exactly.
And then you getting the third notice on the utility bill, and then they didn't tell you about it.
Well, I think that happens when you don't communicate and establish those boundaries
Absolutely.
or that understanding of where you go, especially when now the relationship takes on another level.
Exactly.
It becomes, when you now live together or even before you get married, because even though as a Christian, I don't necessarily 100% agree with, being with the person before you get married. I believe there's a place for it, because now you get to see and feel, like my engagement personally was 2 years.
Okay.
So we got to know each other to
Right,
make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
we knew what we were getting into.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then you start talking about budgeting, you're talking about, compromising.
Yeah.
And sacrificing too.
Yeah.
You talked about your husband allowing you to go to college.
Exactly.
I would have loved to have done that at the beginning, because my wife actually had dropped out of college,
Okay.
to be a mother. But thank God, she was able to go back a couple of years
There you
ago,
go.
and she just completed her degree this year, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
And we're going to be
Good for
celebrating her in a couple of weeks, celebrating her
That's
accomplishment. So it's never too late.
Nope, it's not too late. But sometimes you just make detours,
Make some details.
right? You make some detours. But if you stay together, you can maneuver through those detours.
Absolutely.
But sometimes people happen, they don't have those conversations. Finances get overwhelming. Then they start
big
arguing
time.
over money. People want to do what they want to do. This selfishness comes into play,
Yes.
and then that's about it.
Yes,
Right?
I've seen plenty
That's
of
about
that.
it. A lot of relationships will fail because they haven't had those conversations.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is you have to listen to how a person feels about money. There's some people who have come from poverty. They are scared to death of ever going back there again.
Yes.
And so when you have somebody like that, some of those people, they may not spend it all.
Right, right.
They want to nest egg. They just want to see the money there.
Mhm,
Long as they
mhm.
know they've got that in case something happens.
Right, but what are your living conditions like?
Exactly.
What are you moving up in terms, not so much how you dress and what have you, because I think the material things are not that important. unless you're worrying about how other people view you.
A lot of people worry
A
about
lot of
that.
and
People
that
pleasers and
I
keeping
think
up with
that
the Joneses.
interferes with your relationship too, because you're
Absolutely.
worrying about what other people think and not what your partner
Exactly.
thinks, and then you create a problem. Now there's friction.
Yeah. Or they're watching Atlanta Housewives.
Housewives
And everybody think they should live like that. Like that. How real is that
Yeah,
for everyday
yeah.
person
No.
working a job, maybe not owning a business, or even a business that's just doing well or breaking even? You're not going to be able to drive around in cars like they.
Absolutely.
And that puts a toll on the relationship.
And you're talking about television, but I used to always have a problem with women's liberation.
Really?
Well, not. I wouldn't call it a problem, but it was a concern.
Okay.
Because, and again, not questioning a woman's independence.
Right.
Okay, but women wanting to take on the role that I don't need a man, and so therefore I could do it all by myself. And so I think that really challenged when I talk about being chivalrous and so forth.
Right.
It's like, well, you can want to be on the same level as me, open your own door, that type of thing. A man loses that feeling of, okay, I'm gonna be the man.
I get it.
You have songs by Beyonce talking about what's
I
that
can do it
song?
on my own.
I bought it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, we listen to that, right? And I get your point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things that leads up to that mindset, right? Because the flip side of that is I can't do it on my own. I can't succeed. I can't make it. That's the flip side of it. So we don't want a lot of sisters walking around with the I can'ts.
That's
right?
true.
So the other thing is that there has to be a balance to that, right? That you can. Not that we want to make it on our own, but you can. And to know that you can is what gives you that feeling of success.
And that's true. But on the flip side, sometimes they don't consider, guess what? Two of us together be more powerful.
Yeah.
Two of us, if we could combine now what we have, we can take it to another even greater level. And I think some people aren't willing to look at that. And again, it depends on how they were brought up, what their environment is like. You talked about people being in poverty and not being able to look beyond that.
Yeah.
Some people just don't know what having money is like.
Yeah.
And so it's not. We're not talking about having a lot of money, but just talking about
just to be comfortable
stuff.
or what you think is
pay the
comfortable.
bills.
I think if we haven't learned anything during the pandemic, it was that even people who thought that they were good and like, oh, I got money in the bank, that quickly dwindled down,
yes.
Right? So then you started having food insecurities, and you got people that were standing on food lines that had never ever stood on food lines before, and they didn't all look like us, right? So now we're seeing how America is pivoting, how it made a big turn, right? So now when you think you are good, are you really that good? Right? So that gives you another view of money. So I think people are going to be traumatized from 2020 in their views about money. That's another thing.
No, you're absolutely right. And another thing that comes that we look at also, I think a lot of people become complacent with what they're doing in life in terms of I'm not talking about chasing money, but putting yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities that might increase. I've always heard a saying from motivational speakers and so forth that talk about wealth in the sense that you won't become wealthy from working a job, but you create multiple streams of income for that. So therefore, you have some other things on the side. You have so both of you have to be in agreement to that as well for it to work.
And you have to pay attention if the person is a person who is and they're fine with just being where they are. Now, what happens to me, and I've found myself in situations like that, is if I am dating someone who is not a go-getter, they're not a overachiever, or they're not like me, they don't have that same mindset. They want me to sit with them. Let's watch TV and eat popcorn, and I'm thinking, I got another play to write. I got some more money to make. What are you, crazy? Right. I'm I could sit and watch a movie for an hour or maybe two, but that's not going to be my whole
you got to divvy up your time on how you gonna do that.
No, that's not going to be, because I got too many plates spinning in the air, and I'm not dropping none. How about that?
And the stats will tell you how much time people spend watching television over taking advantage of opportunities and changing their situation, especially from a financial perspective.
So you have to have those conversations so you can understand their mindset. If they are, I just want to chill, I'm cool with my job, I'm making $18 an hour, but I'm good, I feel like I'm good. Well, if you're good, then be good.
Yeah.
It's not good for me.
Well, you use a term about being equally yoked.
Exactly.
And equally yoked means that applies to all categories.
Everything.
Because if you have to be able to complement one another.
Exactly.
I have to be able to encourage you to do it. Now it's so funny because I talked about my wife finishing up school. When as she got older, and she'll tease and say I didn't support her, but I didn't. I told her basically at the beginning, because I never had any ambitions of going back to school, because I never finished more than 2 years of college. I did associates, and I was done with it. I was not, just the whole organized education. I have a problem with it, even though my kids all went through it, and my daughter is in college now, and so I support it for different reasons.
Right. Okay.
However, she'll accuse me of not supporting her because I didn't help her with her homework on times, but I did assist. But what I didn't do was pressure her to do anything else. I supported her by giving her a space to let her be a student. So again,
that was your contribution,
and that was the financial, and we made the financial sacrifices on that as well, because she had to pay for it.
Exactly.
And so we said, look, we had a position. Let's go ahead and you can go ahead and do it. She made the decision, and it wasn't, it wasn't about getting permission or anything like that. Right. This was a desire that she's had since she dropped out, and she wanted
when
to
your
finish.
Partner co-signs it, and they say, "Hey, listen, it's not for me," and it doesn't have to be your thing, right? That's the thing, that it doesn't have to be your thing.
Exactly.
But as long as you can support your partner, then whatever their dreams are, their aspirations are.
Right.
See, because that takes us into what the next category looks like. So now you start to get more mature, right? So listen, getting in relationships and discussing finances when you're more mature is very different when you start out and you don't have two nickels to rub together. But now you got some nickels. So now your thought process is how to protect your nickels, right?
That too.
Yeah, you're going to think about that. If you have children from a previous relationship, now you have children. You have children you have to take care of, children that you want to make sure you pass down generational wealth, right? So there are different conversations now.
Absolutely, big time, especially when you mention children, because they're financial. I've always said children, even though I believe the finances will as long as you have family, the children will be taken care of to some extent. I just believe the biggest sacrifice that parents have to make with children is rearing them. Yeah. How we're going to parent. Okay, that's
a lifelong process too.
And
I just want to put that out there right now, is that you don't stop being a parent when your kid turn 18.
Not at all.
Okay?
Not at all.
Because I got one that's 29.
Mine is grown.
They're grown.
We still have to.
I'm still parenting.
Check them
sometimes. They just don't realize that I'm
parenting.
It's a different way of doing it, because now you just kind of drop these little nuggets. You don't necessarily,
and then you got, going back to financing, not to go away from that, but now you got to teach them.
Teach them, how do they learn it? If they see you get up every morning and go to work, right? They see me go to work. They see me run a business. They see me do 2, 3 things at one time. How do they get that mindset of they know that they're going to go to work, or they know that they're going to go to college? Where do they get that? They get it from what they see. We're their first educators.
Understanding the value of a dollar, that it doesn't grow on trees. And I think, my daughter, having her later in years.
Okay.
The parenting, a lot of people
it's different,
says,
right?
Because after putting your biggest effort into the first one, making sure they don't do anything wrong, the second one you're not as forceful because you're kind of tired, and the third one is like, whatever. But I say all that to say that I feel that I dropped the ball when it came down to finances with my daughter.
Really?
For not emphasizing enough about teaching her about money and so forth. She wants to work. She knows about working to make money, but the spending aspect of it. And I guess maybe it's just because she's a girl during these social media times, and you see all this, stuff out there. She likes her Gucci and her name brand stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
See, I'm also a person who believes that if you buy one quality item, then repeatedly buying a cheaper item. See, by the time you buy 5 cheap bags, or you buy one good bag and you keep it for a long time, right? Or you buy 5, 6 cheap bags, and then so that's my thought process. I believe in just quality.
I might have to have you share that with her, because I hope she's watching, or I hope she watches this episode.
And I think that's it. But I noticed that with my youngest son, he's 19, right? He's gonna be 20 in October, and he got something that the rest of them didn't get. He really understands investment. He understands banking better than they did, and I think that's because I kind of have more now than I did in the very beginning. So now I understand. Yes, I understand how to teach it better. How to teach how you should be making money. How when you go to a bank and they have promotionals, right? Move the new money around. Yeah. If you move the new money around, because they utilize our money, so what's in it for me? I don't need a toaster. Right? I need more money. There you go.
And I'm proud of my oldest son who's into real estate. And he's into the stock market now, so he understands that. Yeah. My second son, he understands a little bit. He's out there, trying to make some moves. And like I said, though, the push from a parenting perspective kind of dwindled when it came down to the last child, and so I want to try to make up for that, to make sure she, because she's 19 also.
Not too late.
And it's not. I got to get her before she buys the next item.
My son is good on spending. He holds on to his money, but when he makes a purchase, if he makes a big purchase, he's going to research the purchase, which is something else that I taught him. Research the reviews, find out what's the best price, where can you get it, all of those things. Do your due diligence to make sure that you get the best that you possibly can. So that's the stuff that we learn.
You maximize the value of the money you spend, and that brings us back to the beginning in a relationship.
See, we're doing that for our children, but there are people out there who they didn't get that.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to touch on in terms of when that relationship first starts out. Yeah. And you're talking about money, and you understand where you both stand financially, even before the marriage.
Right.
Because going into the marriage, and that's
the thing
unfortunate.
About finances is that people they're not honest with it, and that's a big thing. You have to be honest with your finances, and if your credit is bad, listen. I'm always, when people say to me, I only pay in cash. That's a red flag. For real.
That's a red flag.
That's a red flag. Everyone needs to establish credit, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent, we all
need to have credit. Right. When you want to make big purchases, when you want to buy homes and cars, you need credit.
Not everybody's gonna be like Mayweather and walk into the car dealership.
It's not gonna work like that.
With $100,000 in a briefcase.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Most of us are gonna have to take out a car loan, right? Depending on what it is that you...
And you can put down a large percentage of it, but you still want to finance some aspect of it to build up that credit and so forth. So when you go into the bigger purchases and you have some standing where you're not a risk to institutions.
Exactly. But you have to be honest about your finances before contemplating marriage. And because what happens is you decide to do a joint... IRS, you do a joint thing, and then here we go. And guess what happens? And you say, well, why aren't we getting a tax return? Well, because he has arrears with child support, and they attach to it because his social is on it. And your social could be on it, right? Because now you're combining everything, and then you're filing joint. See, that's something that can impact your life.
I've seen over the course of the last couple of months with people filing their income taxes, how there's a strategy whether you do joint or separate.
I've never done joint ever.
My wife and I have been doing joint.
No, I've never done
because
joint.
We have a business that we run together as well, and so we always do a Schedule C, That way you take advantage of all the
Right.
tax credits
Yeah.
that you deserve and
Yeah.
so forth. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, what
Right.
the tax laws are
Exactly.
and what benefits you can
Yeah,
get
there's some
from
great
taxes.
benefits of filing joint. However, you have to make sure that your partner is
Right.
in good
And
standings.
that's
Right?
the-
Because if they're not in good standings, you're not going to see a tax return.
yeah,
And you can find yourself in court as well.
absolutely.
Right?
But we're talking about accounts. Again, going back to the relationship and talking about finances and
Exactly.
so forth. Now coming into, say, a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
you have to talk about how you're going to manage the now our combined incomes.
That's
How are we
before
going
you
to deal
even,
with that?
Before you even sign on the
Yeah,
dotted line. We gotta have
definitely,
that
definitely. But
conversation.
going into it, even
Yeah.
before you start it,
Yeah.
but what is our plans
Yeah.
on how we're going to manage our joint incomes?
Well, first you got to be willing to disclose your income, right? Because
Yeah,
now
that's
that's a real pain point for some
Yeah.
people is to disclose their income, especially if the man thinks that the woman, may make more money than them. That may be a problem.
And some men have
right?
a problem with
Some
that.
men don't care,
It doesn't
you know?
matter.
Some men,
Yeah.
I
I
find
think it's-
the challenge in that is sometimes when the woman is making more money, they expect that her contribution should always be more. At some point, I guess it's okay, but after a while, you get worn out. If you're paying 75% of everything, and the man is paying 25%, I think
Oh, yeah, no, that's
that
going to be a
he should
strain.
be-
That's going to be a strain.
he's going to have to step up.
On
So if that
something
means
else,
get
yeah.
another job, then you get another job. Whatever it takes for you to now come up,
Right,
right?
right.
It's okay to start that way, but it's not okay to end that way because
I've-
somebody's going to get worn out.
I've had some challenges
Yeah.
the way I was unemployed and my wife had to hold it down, but I didn't, I took those times,
Yeah.
which may have been unfair to her because we had some debates and talks about it,
The talk.
talks about it on how, look,
Yeah,
because I
it's a
took
lot of
advantage of
pressure.
the time to now venture into some other things that I wanted to try out,
Yeah.
or so to speak.
Would you have had that opportunity had you not been married?
Probably
think?
not,
See?
and I would probably have to jump right into something else, But then, if I hadn't been married, then the responsibilities might not been as much either, though.
Well,
So
you just would have been
it-
taking care of yourself.
basically, and who knows? That's a challenging question, but
Yeah,
I I really appreciate and love her for that because she, even though again we had our talks, I was able to.
Yeah. It had to be a
make those
strain.
attempts and so forth
Yeah,
to
it's,
do that.
it's,
And-
it's
and-
stressful. It puts a lot
yeah.
of stress on a relationship.
While she's had like this, career working basically doing the same company, not necessarily doing the same thing, but it's for 20 plus years.
Wow.
Where I might have. I said, you know what? I'm
Yeah,
tired of this
yeah.
one. I'm doing the next one. Just trying to find that right
Find
niche,
that
and that's the other aspect of the finances that's going because now your contribution fluctuates.
Yeah.
I've always been
That's
trying to
the
make
problem.
more
Yeah.
and trying to increase.
That's the challenge, and you got to know that going in. Especially if you, let's say for instance, you're a person with a steady income, but you're contemplating marrying someone who, when he doesn't work, he doesn't get paid. Let's say he's a construction worker, makes a lot of money when he's working, but what about when he's not
There's no
working?
contracts.
Spends a lot of time on unemployment, right?
Right.
The finances have to continue. The
Have to
bills is going to
continue.
continue,
Yeah, something
whether
continues.
he's working or not.
Yeah.
So then, who's going to hold that
All
down?
of that is
All
stuff you have
of
to
that is
consider.
a conversation,
All of that you have to
right?
consider.
If a man is going to marry a woman who has children, right? Maybe he has no children, and now he marries a woman. He wants to marry a woman with children. What does that look like? Does the children have a father that's an active father, or is he
contributing? Yeah.
non-participating father?
Wow.
Right?
That's a big.
That's
question
a
mark.
big question, and that's a conversation that has to be had
Absolutely.
before you move in. Because I
Before you
believe
get
a
there.
lot of men are in the shelter system because they didn't have those conversations that they need to have, and then after a while they're like, you know what,
Yeah.
you gotta go,
Yeah.
and they had no plan B.
And again, it comes back to communication and really touching on these subjects, and that's
Absolutely.
why these podcasts are so important to talk about some of the pitfalls that you might fall into, some
Yeah.
of the challenges you might come across when you are go from the dating stage into the relationship stage into
Exactly,
the marriage stage.
exactly.
These are things.
Yeah.
No conversations off limit because these are some of the things you're gonna run into.
I'm always surprised when people don't want to talk about finance. See, this is the thing I don't get. You don't want to talk about finances, right? You don't want to talk about certain things like infidelity. Like people don't want to talk about certain things they don't want to talk. But you can lay down with somebody. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like you're sharing the most intimate part of yourself. There's nothing between you but air, but you can't talk about money. I don't get it. I'm never
And
gonna
it comes down
understand
to it comes down to building trust too. And we touched on that a little bit last week about the trust aspect of it. Because, my wife and I can be walking down the street and she'll say, it's we see a young lady walk across the street or something. Like, is that your type there? or what do you think about, what she's wearing or something like that? And I don't have to hide from looking at that lady. Like, most guys will, if you see a woman walking this way, right, you look the other way so that you can catch her coming by and you could make believe like you weren't looking. And now you hide it. It's like, then you have jealousy that steps in. The one thing I hate about relationship, and I don't mean to change the subject, but jealousy can ruin so much in a relationship. And I guess it could tie into finance too, because if the woman is making more money than the guy, jealousy could kind of fall in there because if she's doing what she wants to do, because she has the wherewithal to do it, and he's kind of tight on what he can do.
Right.
That could affect the relationship.
Yeah.
So,
but that stems from insecurities and all of the other things. And so the insecurities can come from all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Past experiences. It could come from lack of finances. All of those things can build insecurities.
Absolutely.
Self-image, right?
Right.
Not feeling comfortable with your
and
whole
we all want to change as we go through certain stages in life. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about having some body work done.
See, this is the thing about the world now. Like, if you don't like it, you can change it straight like that. Like, you don't have to live with it. You got a crooked nose, change it. Like, you don't even have to live with nothing anymore.
It's so funny. My wife sent me a text the other day. It was a meme, but I can't remember for verbatim, but it was like, if there was one thing about your body that your spouse can change, what would it be? And then the answer was, it wouldn't be anything because he loved 100% of me. Okay. Something like that on the outside that you could change. Okay. Love 100% of me. So my wife said that to me, and I sent back. I said like question mark, something like that, just to be funny. And I won't share what it is, but I said, how about 99.99%?
Oh.
Can there be one thing that
I could have?
And so we had a good laugh about it.
Right.
But of course,
well, no one's perfect, and so
and we don't expect that.
Yeah. Well, I think some people expect it and they never find it, and then therefore they're never really happy with themselves or with anyone else.
Right.
So now let's talk about when right before you're getting ready to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say the man is going to come into the woman's household. This is an existing household. She is, 40. Okay. She's made house already. Remember we talked that term, made house.
Made house.
Right. So they made house already. So she's got a house already. Still got a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a car note. She got a couple of kids.
Mm-hmm.
They got tuition. All kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that. And now he meets her, loves her. Now he wants to get married. What do you think they should do? What's the next step?
Got to put everything on the table. Got to put everything on the table, and now we're going to talk about how we're going to work it. How we're going to commingle these things, because I've always been opposed to if you're in a committed relationship, especially a marriage.
Okay.
I don't think it should be, where's your 50% of the rent or the mortgage? Here's my 50%. It should be
that's
something.
That's a business deal, though.
It's transactional, like we talked about, but it should be something that's established, that we have a joint account to handle the bills.
I agree.
At the very least.
I agree to that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And so that would probably be the first conversation with that woman that's already made house.
Yeah.
what's going to be my contribution?
Right.
Now, of course, if he's worrying about, okay, I'm coming into this relationship with no children, and I'm taking on responsibility, so to speak,
It's a
of
full
your
package deal.
children.
You know that.
You have to be willing to deal with that.
That's
you
right.
have to come straight with how you want to deal
That's
with that.
right.
Because if you're not going to handle it and it's going to become a problem,
Yeah.
you have to question that before you even get to that stage.
Yeah. And you know what I find really disgusting sometimes is when people don't have those conversations, and then you look in their refrigerator and something, they got labels on it like, this my food, and that, I find that so utterly disgusting.
Yeah.
It's such in poor taste.
A lot of that comes
just
from
straight
upbringing. Or if
tacky.
you've been in that situation where the household was never I mean, and I've been poor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination right now, but I've been in situations where the refrigerator was empty.
Okay.
I had syrup sandwiches.
Wow.
Mom was working all she did the best she could, but we made do with whatever we could do.
Mm-hmm.
The government cheese was on point when they was giving it out at the school, and we'd go get some block cheese.
We had that cheese too, but
Okay.
my father bought it.
Yeah, well,
He
we
bought
had
it
to
off
go
the
get
people
it.
who wanted to sell it.
So I can understand when you have a household of 10 kids and y'all have nothing, and one of them somebody gives you something, it's like you're gonna savor it, and so you put it. You probably hide it. You might
Back of the fridge.
unless it's something that needs to be in the refrigerator, you're gonna probably hide it. But if it has to be in the
Stash it in
refrigerator,
here. Yeah,
you're
right.
gonna label it
Yeah.
so nobody else doesn't touch it.
And that
I've
goes
had a lot
on.
of friends who went
Still
through
do
that,
it, yeah.
who had they had 3, 4, 5 siblings that sleeping in bunk beds and stuff like that, and went through that. So if you come from that type of background,
have that mentality.
some of that you carry over, not realizing you don't have to do that no more.
Yeah.
You're making a little bit more money now. You don't have those
Yeah.
siblings that you have to share
Yeah.
with. But again,
That's a conversation.
all of those things.
All of that in that dating phase. I'm not saying in the
You gotta
dating
pick up
phase that
on
you
those
must like disclose your salary and all your 401k. You don't have to do that.
Right.
But what you do have to do is watch people and their behaviors.
The actions.
That's
Actions
when you
speak louder
gather
than
data
words.
in the dating phase. I keep
Yeah.
telling people that you're gonna have to gather your data, right?
Actions
But
speak
before you're
louder
gonna
than
move
words.
in with someone, I think the best thing is for say to her, listen, how much does it cost you to maintain your household? Because I can tell you where I'm at. If I have to spend more to bring somebody else on board with
I can
me,
do better by myself.
I can
then.
do good all by myself. Somehow that new math don't work for me, so I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Now, would it mean I wouldn't date you? No, I keep dating you. If I like you, I can still
But
date
you
you.
stay over there.
But you
at
gonna
your
keep
place.
in your
You can spend a night here, a weekend
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Because now it's turning into a little bit of a liability,
Yeah.
and we don't want that.
I can
When
understand
people, because I think that a lot of people are together, not necessarily because they're so in love right now.
Right.
I think some people are together because financially it just works.
And if it works for both of them, then that's cool. But you also need to make sure that you're in agreement with that. Now, because if one person is doing it for devious reasons or personal or selfish reasons, then once something changes, then now that's a strain on the relationship.
It's not love.
Right.
It's not love.
Right. It was convenience.
It's convenience, and I believe that there are a lot. If we were able to do a survey and everyone could stay anonymous, I believe there are a lot of
100%
relationships that are existing like that, where people are cohabitating. Is just a level of convenience.
Absolutely.
And it's not anything to do with love. You might like the person, I think through the pandemic they realized they didn't like all those people that they was living with.
People had to spend time with the people that they say they love.
And they couldn't
for
go
a
to
long
see the
time.
side chick or the side dude because everybody was in quarantine.
A lot of stuff was revealed during this pandemic. I tell you that.
Absolutely, because people just couldn't take it. They
Good,
realized that this is not even worth it anymore. And so some of those are the sacrifices that they make because they want to be able to maybe have that freedom of having more cash flow to be able to purchase whatever they want or do whatever they want.
Yeah, and then we talked about budget, but sometimes it's also. I remember early on there was a point where my wife and I decided to do a Christmas club.
Okay.
So we put a certain amount of your check each week in October you get this lump sum, and that's what we'd use to buy Christmas gifts.
Oh, that's cute.
You know, and they still have it at a lot of banks. You know, their Christmas clubs and so forth. I think that works. You know, if you can.
That's a cute idea. All right, Christmas clubs. Christmas club. I'll be like, I just have a bank account that's for whatever, and then
Well, see, but that's the thing, right? You have to be able to come to agreement. On how you're going to budget.
She put 10, and
Right, because
that's cute.
Now you wait until November, December to buy Christmas gifts. Who are you buying for?
Right.
Do you have a budget,
right,
or is it limitless?
Yeah.
And then you're paying for it in January and February when those credit card bills come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a conversation.
Absolutely.
That's a conversation.
Because debt, you talked about financing and infidelity and finances being the biggest challenges in marriages. But when I talk about money and finances in relationships, it's not so much money itself, it's the lack of, especially when you're dealing with debt.
Yeah, and it's also the spending, because even if let's say for instance, you're not in debt, the couple may not be in debt,
okay,
but people will have their spending habits are reckless, right? Or they go out and they gamble and they waste up a lot of money. It doesn't mean that they don't have money, but to see that you spend 10 grand, over a Resort World, like, are you serious? And everything's make believe, like, where really?
Well, that starts to turn into other issues now.
Other
now you're talking about addictions and things of that nature that you got to deal with.
Yeah.
And that you got to talk about.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talking about finances. There's a lot to understanding finances, and that's important. That people need to do some research. I mean, everything is Googleable. Like, right? Just
that's a new one. I like that. Googleable. Hey. Googleable. All right.
Actually, I stole that from Melba Moore. So she was
really?
the one who told me that everything is Googleable. And I think
say Google it.
No, she said everything's Googleable, and it is. So if you don't know about investment, if you don't know about real estate, if you don't know where you can get the best interest for your money, if you don't know, you could research those things now. There's no excuse for that. Ignorance is not a defense.
Yeah.
Right? But going into a relationship, if you know now that you're thinking about marriage, you're thinking about coexisting with each other, cohabitating, then those conversations, those difficult conversations have to be had.
Absolutely.
If you're moving into someone else's home, the question is, how much does it take to maintain this household? If this person says it's $6,000 a month to maintain that household in the level in which it has been maintaining, and your contribution is like $1,500, she may not go for that, and then you gotta be okay with that.
Yeah.
If she doesn't go for that,
because you're increasing it to $7,500 now. That's what your
contribution is. You've
been maintaining the $6,000 already,
and a water bill, and
hey, I'm
see,
this is my share of that.
Oh no!
I'm joking.
See, that's that new math. We don't do that new math on this podcast. The thing is, but there are some women who will say, well, okay, if that's what you can contribute now, $1,500. You understand?
I was about to say that.
But this is my plan, so I can get to at least 3,
be able to
and I can bring in more. Yeah. Or I have a side gig that it brings me in some extra income off the books or whatever. If you say that, that's a whole different ball game, and so you have to look at all of it, right? Yeah. So I think we covered so much, but let's make sure that everyone got their notes tonight, because one of the things is that we're going to make sure that you have those conversations about finances, right?
Put it on the table.
Yes, and do not lie. Do not lie about your
finances.
Don't lie about your stanky credit score. If your credit report, I think everybody should put their credit report on the table for real, because I think you should know. I think you should know what you're up against.
I agree with putting everything on the table, but you don't have to go into every detail, especially at the beginning. No. But if you're talking about being serious, you're talking about getting into a strong relationship that might lead to marriage, especially if you're already considering marriage, then those things have to be talked about.
They have to be on the table. Get the credit report. Put the credit report on the table. If we're going to talk about salary, how much is your income? How much is it that you're bringing into the household? Minus any of those expenses. Because let's say, for instance, he has child support payments from someone else. I actually dated someone, and he had big
alimony,
child
stuff like
support
that.
obligations. He had arrears, and most of our dates was like the diner and the movies. And you know what? I met him where he was at, and I was right. Now, would have considered cohabitating with him? No, because his contribution was unsteady.
Was strenuous too for you.
It was unsteady, and so I would end up having to. My expenses would have been way more, and that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I don't do the new math, right?
The new math. The new math.
So that's one of the other things.
It's definitely a topic
Yes.
that probably would have more details if we had the time to continue.
Yeah. So that's the biggest things is to make sure that you have those conversations and be honest about where you're at.
Right.
And if you have some outstanding debt, that you talk about it. Because when you marry someone, guess what? You
bring it with
marry
you.
their
Bring
debt.
them with you. Coming
You
with you.
marry their debt. All right. So make sure that you understand
That's
that.
true.
Right. You're not gonna stop.
Yeah.
That debt is gonna continue. If they got all these old things that they loans and this and that, that's gonna reduce the amount that they are able to contribute to the household. You have to look at the whole picture. Love is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm loving love. I love it.
Love is love.
But you have to be intelligent with your decision.
Wise,
you have to make
wise, intelligent, all of
and
those,
intelligent
yeah.
decisions. That sometimes you have to kind of take the emotion part out of it and get back to the business of marriage.
And I think that's the biggest part. That's the biggest challenge: removing the emotion and really understanding that there is some business aspects to marriage.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Business of marriage.
It's the business of
Yes.
marriage, and you got to treat it like a business. Unfortunately, and the love is still there, but we're not trying
Love
to.
don't pay the bills.
Not at all. What is it? No romance with no finance. See, all right. I think everybody understands today that the finance part of it is really important. Making sure at different points in your life, it looks very different.
Yeah.
When you have very little, that's one conversation. When you started to build on some assets, that's another conversation.
It's great to build together too.
Yeah. If you
it
can.
makes that bond even
If you
stronger.
can. It's a great feeling when you know
Yeah.
you're not going it alone.
Yeah.
So for all the women who you say I could do it without a man, yeah, you can, but do you want to? At the end of the day.
I touched on that earlier, right?
All right, so there we have it. That's the business of marriage. So Ernest, thank you so much
It was my
for
pleasure.
today.
It
I'm
was
always
fun.
like
It was
talking
fun
to you. We could just
talking.
talk on and on and on. You know, so I just hope that
I got a
everybody.
big mouth. I'm a blabbermouth.
No,
I got a
not
lot
at
to
all.
talk about.
Not at all. So guys, next Sunday, 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
The business of marriage.
Business of marriage.
Now make sure that you go and you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, please.
And share.
And share it with all your
Share.
friends. We need lots of folks.
Even
to
while
be
you're
watching.
watching, you could be sharing
Yeah,
it
just
out.
share it
On
out.
Facebook
And
Instagram.
and hit the notification so that even if you're doing the laundry, it'll tell you that it's time for the
Coming
business
on.
of marriage, right?
Coming on. That's
All right.
That's
Until next time.
See you
Peace,
guys.
y'all.